I'm a director of media engineering. My group is in charge of implementing capital projects. So we have two main networks, English and French. Each network has radio and TV and web presence. The network center for the French network is in Montreal. The network center for the English network is in Toronto. Plus we have regional stations in all the provinces.
We have more than 2,000 users using the system 24 hours a day, 365 days a year.
One of the main objectives from the CBC Radio-Canada for the past 10 years, I would say, is the idea of providing the journalists and the producers content, giving them access to the content that we already have, but also look at material or listen to material that we have into different regions and be able to listen to it, cut it, and importing it into your own city and into your own system. Like many other companies, we're moving from being radio TV to being a content company. We're publicly funded, and everywhere it's public funded. And at the same time, we have limited amount. We want to better cover our region. One of the goals, the objective of the CBC Radio-Canada is to better cover our regions. So, and sometimes there's not an economic case to cover the regions and make money out of it. So as far as we can reduce the cost, it helps us to keep our mandates and to be present to all Canadians and present Canada to Canadians everywhere. Some of these stations are in markets that are like 40 or 50,000 people. So we are very big, and we have very big stations, but we have very small stations working, I would say, on the shoestring, but with very limited amount of people. So Avid has enabled us to do both. In fact, and this is what we like about Avid is it's a solution that's scalable, and it's the same training. We can have journalists train in a small market, and if they move to cover a big story in Montreal or Toronto, or the other way around, if something happens in the regions and they need more manpower, more journalists, we can send people from Montreal or Toronto or other regions to that regions, and it's the same tool everywhere. So we have one system that covers all the markets that we have.
Before we had a lot of barriers, network, hardware, knowledge, internet connection. So
with Interplay Central, with Avid, OneBrowse, all these tools, it makes it so simple that now you can do things that we wouldn't do before. And it comes back for the CBC Radio-Canada. If we have something, we should be able to use it, to find it, to look at it, and to use it easily. Because if it's difficult, then we have talking heads and no video behind.
The concept of the newsroom has changed dramatically over the past 10 years. It's no longer sitting in an edit bay with your craft editor and your producer with a stack of tapes going through what has been logged over the past week and a half to build this one story. It's too fast now. There's too much going on. There's too much content we need to provide. And what the Avid workflow allows is that flexibility to take that story wherever it leads you, to create anywhere in the world you need to create, to be anywhere in the world you need to be, for the journalist to really take control of that story and to be able to really drive content wherever that content takes them.
Avid, with their latest product, Interplay Central, really improved the offer by first creating a software web-based. With the Interplay Central, what I love is really that we can have a poor internet connection, it works. The proxy, even if it comes from a high quality, on-air quality, HD, whatever, it works. I can browse the video, I can choose, I can do editing with that. I can look for my text, I can see other servers, and I can bring that to my own PC or to another server, depending the way it's configured.
I think that what is going on in the newsroom these days is the fact that people know that they always have a little more to do. So I think what people are looking for is a way to do something only once and then to be able to have access to their work for all the platforms that they want to broadcast.
I can create a layout for somebody and it fit his need, and for the other person it will be really different, and I can create publish what I've done on the web again, on the radio, TV, on different systems. Last summer, I was really showing a story on my iPhone, on my iPad, and on a PC, the same story on the 3 different devices. And the president of the corporation said, "Oh my God!" And I was in Montreal, and we're talking about a location that is 6 hours from here. So Wi-Fi, a different tool, and I can view video. I mean, who could have think about that 3 years ago? I'm not talking 20. I'm talking only a few years ago. It was impossible.
What's really cool about AirPlay Central is that all you need to access it is a web browser and an internet connection. You open up your web browser, and then you have a series of panes. And within these series of panes, you have access to all the different applications and tools that you're used to using, but in a thick client environment. Now your journalist who's in the field, where they need to be, where the story is, has complete control over that story, has complete access to what's going on in the control room, what's going on in the newsroom. They have that ability to really be tied in wherever they are. And that's what the digital age allows. That's what the Avid workflow allows.
For us, the cost of deploying a station in a region is still high, but we want to reduce that. And ideally is to have no infrastructure in a small station. So by pushing forward with Interplay Central and probably Sphere, we can deploy quickly stations, but the hardware would be in the cloud or in one of our own station, but we can have people everywhere connected together, covering parts of the country that we cannot cover right now. What helped us a lot is to go to tapeless, to server-based editing. What Avid brought when we changed system to Avid, what was added was the archive is now tapeless also. It used to be tape. And the interaction between all the other systems where we can exchange material between Montreal and all the regional stations, exchanging files instead of exchanging, video feeds from satellite or whatever. So for us, that was very important.
I like to think of Avid's involvement with any company as being a long-term process, that just developing and designing the technology is one key part of it. But then we have to make sure we know how it works in your environment, in your workflow. So then we have to design that particular piece of technology to fit in your environment. And then we have to implement it. Make sure that everyone in your environment's trained. Make sure they know how to use it. Make sure how they're ready to use this technology to really start driving more productions. And after that, we want to make sure we're there to support you. It's a long-term partnership that we have. It's a long-term investment we make in your company and you make in ours.
Right now we have 21 Avid News system plus 2 post-production systems, one in Montreal, one in Toronto. So the goal is to get all these systems interconnected as quickly and as easily as possible for the users.
Instead of creating silos, it's really the opposite. We're collaborating, we're sharing. When something happens in the world, we can produce something very quickly because we know about it, and then we can share it very in a seamless way and without having to talk to 5 different persons before getting the material. I mean, it's we can be self-sufficient. We have worked out many workflows with all the different products we're using, and when the cameraman come back with the footage, we put that on an Avid server. Then we publish it into iNews that we have this material, so everyone can access this material. We have technologies that integrate all servers that we have across the country, and we can see what people are producing across the country with the same tool. That's really useful. We have a central point in Toronto and in Montreal. It's a bit like an Apple store. We call that our Avid store. So instead of people looking around in all Avid server across the country, we did the store. So people look in the store for the top stories or for footage to create their own story, to have their individuality. I mean, we don't want to have the same story across the country. Each region treat the subject in a different way. In the past, to have, let's say, a 15-minute clip of a big event in another location, to find someone to know exactly what I want. I have to talk to the person. I have to reach which is the right person to reserve the line or to the entire process. To have the 15 minutes, I would say we're talking about almost 4 to 5 hours. And now I have exactly what I want, and it will cover my story, and I will be sharp.
What the Avid environment is allowing you to do is to really enable the people that are working for you to get the most done. And part of that process is allowing them to take advantage of all the assets you have company-wide. You might not have it in your studio, but you might very well have it hundreds of kilometers away in another studio. What this is allowing you to do is to let your journalists own the story, to let your journalists get that asset themselves without needing help, without having to slow down anyone else's production or your own production.
You never know what you can expect from your day. The day can start very calmly. You think there's not going to be anything going on, and then when it starts, the news starts popping. That can get very interesting very rapidly, and that's when you need to have reliable applications in order to make the most of it.
Every time we do a station, even if it's our 5th or 6th or 7th station, there's always somebody from Avid to configure it, and on day one, when we do the first show, there's always somebody from Avid. Avid has good product, it's ahead of the pack, but it's also there and take care of the legacy equipment, and in the CBC we want to keep the equipment for a very long time. So Avid does that. They don't drop products and leave this client, without support.
They are thinking ahead. I mean, they are not waiting that the competitors are doing something by doing things like a web browser, that publishing on the web, publishing on different media and social network. We have to be in advance, and so they have to follow us too. So by dealing with a company that are thinking ahead, and I think we're doing a great job too on our side. So as a team effort, we can produce something very nice.
Here are some questions customers have been asking. The first one is, how much of the workflow is based on media proxies? Are they always created when media is acquired? Well, typically in most workflows, they are created upon ingest. But even if they're not, the Avid workflow allows for them to be created on the fly. Let's just take the example of Interplay Sphere or Interplay Central. If you're in the field browsing full res assets in the Interplay, it's creating proxies on the fly, so you'll be able to view them when your bandwidth might not be that large in the field. Here's another one. I hear about Interplay Pulse. What is it and how does it work? All right, well, Interplay Pulse is an option on Interplay Production as well as iNews. It sits on top of the Interplay Central framework. What Interplay Pulse allows you to do is create content, whether it be video or text, and send it to Facebook, Twitter, your own web page, YouTube, your own video platform. It allows you to do all of this through one streamlined, simple user interface. The point of this is it allows your journalist to own the story from creation through distribution. Nowadays, every broadcaster, whether they only run a noon, 6, and 11 o'clock news, you're still expected to be a 24/7 broadcaster. You're expected to be creating content through all your distribution channels, and that's your Twitter page, your Facebook page, and your own web page. What this allows you to do is for the journalist to create that content without the help of a craft editor. And it allows your digital department to create a great deal more content with the exact same resources. All right, the next one here. We would like to have the same capabilities of the CBC, but we have a very limited budget. What can we do? Well, first of all, I think a point should be made that the CBC doesn't have an unlimited budget either. They have a large area where they need to cover, and they too have limited resources. The key here is to design the right system for the right company. And what's important about the Avid environment is that it's all scalable. It can work for the largest broadcaster right down to a smaller broadcaster. We have that ability to scale down to where it needs to be, but still maintain that core functionality that's necessary to have that dynamic workflow environment.